Welcome to Camel City Chat, and I'm here with Daniel Spivey, and we're in Broad Branch. This is so, I'm excited. We've talked about doing this for how long now? 2 years?
Yeah, way too long.
So pre-COVID, and so Broad Branch Distillery. John Fergakis founded us. We're going to find out all about that, but we got to ask you the most important question first. Where are you from, and how long have you been in Winston?
Ooh, so not being a military brat, I ended up bouncing all over the country. My mom moved us to Southern California when I was maybe a year old, and we bounced around Southern California until the riots, and then moved to Alabama, where my dad's from. Spent about 4 years there, then went back out to California.
Right.
Then, of course, I joined the military, and then spent the next 20 years going all over the place.
What branch?
Air Force.
Oh, thank you. My dad was Army Air Corps, and he is 98. I'll have to bring him down here to meet you sometime. Nice. But yeah, Army Air Corps out of Florida, and I think he was like, he wasn't the gunner and he wasn't the pilot. He was the one in between. So I never can get the whole story right. So
the loadmaster or the person that makes
engineer
sure,
or something,
right.
But he also shot too, or
yeah. If he was back Army Air Corps days, there was either probably a belly gun or a side gun that he would manage, and like the engineer would make sure kind of fuel calculations, weight ratios, things like that were all on point to keep it so it doesn't fall out of the sky.
So I think his turret was on top maybe, but then there was Little Joe, and he's the one that had to go through some hole about this big, and then when he got cold, he would shoot the gun, and so then it would, y'all are crazy.
So
but thank you for your service.
I appreciate that.
So, and you've been in Winston for how long now?
Well, so I moved here February 2020, right before kind of like COVID shut everything down.
So that's when I met you.
Yeah, I just started at the distillery.
Or did I? I'm just trying to think about this. Did I meet you then, or did they give me your card to call you? I swear I think I met you at that point.
You probably met me.
Yeah.
I didn't quite have cards yet. I was still a DoD Skills Bridge intern.
Right.
So I started here as an unpaid intern. And the Department of Defense has this wonderful program where if you're transitioning out, they'll let you go up to 6 months early and keep paying all your pay and benefits. So I came here as an unpaid internship, just trying to figure out what my next step in life was. And as luck would have it, I was a good fit for the team here. They saw some stuff in me that they thought could be helpful to the distillery, and within 4 months, I was a full-time employee and made a seamless transition.
Did you get to double dip for 2 months?
No, I wasn't legally allowed to be paid until I was on my terminal leave.
Okay.
You know, once all the kind of final paperwork was signed and I moved into, that last block of 45 days of paid vacation.
That's so freaking awesome that a lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm. So you basically serve our country, and then almost like an educational grant or something like that, they pay you for 6 months to come and do something that you wanted to learn about and love.
Right.
And now it's your career.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really fortunate. Distilled spirits, cocktails, whiskey, of course, has been...
None of that you were exposed to in the military, correct?
I mean, I did develop an obsessive hobby of collecting and reading everything I could, whether it was whiskey or rum or classic cocktails. So being able to transition into my passion after 20 years of service has been absolutely fantastic for me.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so now that's that question. So we know how you got here. Now the next question is, and I know that you've got some close places here. I can already look out the window and see one of them that I think you might say. But like, what's your favorite place to eat?
Oh, there's so many good places in town. And we have new places opening up every day. I would say if I'm gonna do a sit-down dinner, white tablecloth, the first two places I'll pop in are gonna be the Catherine in 1703.
The Catherine that serves Frank's Reserve.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
And then if I want something maybe a little more casual, not like very formal, Moselle's is always fantastic. Of course, we have Mission Pizza across the street, which is, was a Beard nominee this last year.
Right.
Of course, I also mojitos.
Mojitos. Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. And then
Yeah.
you have the food truck. So if people don't know where you are, you basically, you used to have Black Mountain Chocolate, which I'm sure you're sad to see them leave, but also
My waistline's
you're
happy about
happy to see them leave. So what is this called? Sunnyside?
No, it's actually
what's the name
it's
of it?
the Big Winston warehouse.
Right.
So
But I
this
saw a Sunnyside sign out front. It was weird.
so Sunnyside used to maintain an office where next door to Celestial, or where Black Mountain used to be.
Okay.
This business complex is called the Big Winston Warehouse. It used to be an old tobacco auction warehouse.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons we named our bourbon Big Winston Bourbon. You know, we're always looking for ways to tie back into whether it's kind of the local heritage here in Winston-Salem, or, you know, with a product like our Night Lab tying back into the North Carolina heritage of distilling, because this is a well over 100-year-old recipe that's been distilled in our state since prior to Prohibition.
Really?
You know, so we're always looking for ways to hold on to some of our heritage and some of our history, whether it's with our local community or the state as a whole.
Right. Now, so we're here. Out here we have Fiddlin' Fish, so you can always grab like, you know, the food truck's going to be there at some point. And then so much around you. I know you guys got the rescue mission close by, and then you can walk down Trade Street. I'm sure you're probably excited that we're seeing, you know, the Irish place. Finnegan's come back.
Is back.
So we're excited about that. But what now about you? What do you like to do when you're not here making or sampling?
Well, I'm going to take collecting off the table, because I've stockpiled a few bottles here and there over the years. But I like being outdoors, moving back to North Carolina, because I was stationed out here, you know, back 2009, 2012 down in Fort Bragg, along with everyone else that gets stationed in North Carolina. But there's such wonderful mountain biking within 30 to 45 minutes drive of Winston-Salem, even stuff in Winston-Salem proper. When you start talking about places like Hobby Park, I've picked up mountain biking again. I try to make sure I'm on the trail at least.
So how long you been doing mountain biking now?
Well, I took about a 20-year break.
Right.
I grew up mountain biking out on the West Coast. Fell out of doing it while I was on active duty.
Right.
So about the last 2 years, I've gotten back into it.
I got some people I'll check in and see if you know them. I've got several friends that do it. No.
Yeah.
I'm scared to exercise sometimes, but I don't know why. So tell me, all right, so we go to, what's John thinking? So, you know, I mean, this Broad Branch is, I would say, the first distillery to open up, because, you know, we've had Zeb on before. I know that they were a long history of distilleries, but I think you guys were open before they were, or
We may
around the
have
same
been.
time?
I think it was pretty similar timelines.
All right. And so where, John, and of course his daughters work here, both Natalie and Anna, and they're in sales. But I mean, what was John, what got us to where we are here? So tell us about that.
So professionally, John kind of grew up in the beer and wine distribution world.
Okay.
You know, had a very successful career in that, and he was talking to a very good friend, Nick DeMoss, who he founded the distillery with, about sort of what's that kind of next chapter look like. They wanted to do something together. And John had fallen in love in the Caribbean with like really nice sipping rooms, which aren't very common in the U.S. or haven't caught on the same way something like bourbon or cognac or you know, Scotch has. So he wanted to produce something in Winston-Salem and not just source barrels from other larger distilleries and bottle it. He wanted to actually produce it, going from whole grain or raw molasses to what ends up finally in the bottle right here in Winston. So it's been a long journey, you know, 2014 to now. It's been 8 years of hard work and sort of both, you know, the founding families of the distillery and the rest of the team just really diving in, learning this craft and learning this trade and learning this industry. And I think we're finally at the point where we're producing things that if we put them in blind tasting with larger distilleries, people won't say, oh, this is the craft one. They're going to assume all 4 of those spirits or all 3 of those spirits that they're tasting blind are coming from big name distilleries.
Well, I think, being here since 77 and, going away to school, coming back, but, seeing the wineries start to pop up. And, at first it was, we buy our juice from somewhere else, and then now it's, there's always yes, you can tell it's a North Carolina wine or stuff like that. Bourbon is such an interesting facet of whiskey because everyone thinks it has to do this or it has to do that or because it has to be made in Kentucky. It doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. It has to be in a certain char of this and this, and all that stuff which you can share with us. But the aging of it and it's just. From the first time I've tasted your stuff to this now, it's a big change.
Oh yeah.
And what's even funnier is as I was talking to the 2 ladies as they were getting ready to leave, I'm like, I didn't even know you guys made rum, and that was like the thing you started with. I just always, I came in and got the blueberry because I told you I was up at one of the restaurants and they have this thing called a Blue Ridge Mountain, and you mix it. And I'm like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to do the Collider blueberry and have that in there along with the blueberries. And then, of course, I've sent some friends in as we were talking about. But, the thing that really reminded me, I got a call, Daniel, is when I was at an event on the top floor of the Reynolds Tower. So we went up there, this is where R.J. Reynolds' office is, and it was an event for some realtors. And everyone kept going, what's the bourbon? What's the bourbon? And, of course, it wasn't a bourbon, it was a whiskey.
Right.
But, I mean, Frank's Reserve is phenomenal.
Oh, the nerdiest part of my brain loves Frank's to death.
Right.
A lot of people think bourbon is all caramel and vanilla, and that's a part of the base distillate. But those flavors specifically are naturally occurring in the wood, and those are wood sugars that get broken down over time. So most American whiskey drinkers haven't kind of fully digested how important wood is to the flavor profile of the spirit. What I love so much about Frank's is that we take our base distillate of something like Night Lab, because they're the exact same product. Night Lab tastes a bit more as in this form, more like a tequila or an agave.
Right.
But when we age it out, and based off how we age it out, it completely transforms into something that tastes like a low rye bourbon.
So that's the mash bill, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right, yeah. The Night Lab is the new make version of Frank's. Then we age Frank's for 3 years, do a blend with it, and we end up with something that tastes like a bourbon. So how do we get from point A to point B on that? Beautiful, beautiful wood science. So we use 3 different styles of barrel. Each barrel is filled independently and aged at least 3 years, and then they get blended together. First barrel we use is charred new oak. It's what you have to use when you're making a bourbon. What's so important about that is the caramel and vanilla elements that you get out of new charred oak. So right off the bat with that barrel, we're getting those flavors that people expect out of the bourbon. Second barrel we use is a French Chardonnay. And that French Chardonnay, we're looking for one primary thing. We're looking for it to amplify our stone fruit elements. Mm-hmm. So that brings a bit more cherry into the forefront of that. And then the final barrel we use is a Hungarian oak barrel. It's a really, really spicy European oak, and we get 2 things out of it. We get this wonderful little bit of black pepper on the side of the palate, but the main thing we're looking for there is amplified baking spice. It really ramps up our cinnamon and nutmeg elements, which people expect to find in a bourbon. And then when we blend all 3 of those barrels together, we get this wonderful, wonderful thing called Frank's Reserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Now, we were talking earlier, and I was telling you one of my favorite bourbons was that you guys don't make, and you actually use barrels from that distillery for the rum.
Yeah, right now.
And so now, well, let's tease that. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break, and you notice there are 2 glasses here. So now that we're working, I figure you probably want to. We'll sample something. We'll be right back with more Camel City Chat after this short break. Welcome back to Camel City Chat. I'm here with Daniel Spivey, and Daniel, of course, is the brand development guru, god, chief? What is your?
I'm the brand development guy.
Okay, brand development guy. All right, so let's have some fun here and not do the whole thing because you and I both have to get home. Although Stabler can drive.
I live right up the road. I can walk.
Yeah, well, okay. So, you know, it is, basically we're here on Wednesday, I think. What is today, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, today's Wednesday. You're open for what hours today?
We're open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
On Wednesdays, okay. So, and your hours are on the website, and the website is?
BroadBranchDistillery.com.
BroadBranchDistillery.com. Stabler's going to put that up there. But when I walk in and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this was in Winston, what happens?
Well, for just normal customers.
Because we're only going to drink like this, yeah. But
Right.
talk about. So what do you do? Run me through all the
spiel?
flavors and stuff that you were talking about. Because I mean that's interesting to me, and you know we're going to get people to come down and see
So
ya.
I always like to start with two spirits that we already talked about.
Right.
And I start with these two for a few reasons. So I always want to start with Night Lab because it was the first thing we brought to market.
Right.
And it's been made in this area of the state since before Prohibition. Like, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of our history.
Right.
This spirit, as is, unaged, coming fresh off the still, tastes more like an agave-based spirit. So your
Right.
tequilas, your mezcals, and it does what a lot of people would expect from a moonshine. So like we make palomas, margaritas, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
With Night Lab.
Speaking of which, Costco has pink grapefruit Fever Tree.
I see that.
Oh my gosh.
Fever Tree makes a beautiful grapefruit
Yeah,
soda.
yeah. So there you go.
It's a toss-up between them and the Jarritos.
Because you were
grapefruit.
naming the drinks, so I wanted to say I was pretty impressed with it. So
And then right next to that is the Frank's Reserve, which we talked about, and it does present as a low rye bourbon. I always like to start here because this is where we started. Everything we've learned up to this point went into producing something like this.
Okay.
With our distillers and our barrel master wouldn't have been able to produce this when we first started making this.
So now, all right. So when I go to your website, you've got all these different people on here, but Joe and Don are your distillers, right?
Well, just Don Jenkins now.
Okay.
Joe left to pursue some other.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So
Oh, no.
so Don, so you got Don, and then he's got two assistants,
Yes.
right? And so and we kind of learned a little bit about that from Zeb, basically how we get to that. I would like to maybe get some B-roll before we leave, going out, and you maybe give us a little tour, or maybe at the end we can go out and you tour us around, show us some things. But so we take this mash bill and basically we convert it into all these other things in some way, shape, or form?
Well, just these two products.
Okay, just those two, okay.
Um,
You don't have to get rid of that, Frank's. I mean, I think it'll fit in my pocket, but go ahead. All right, so what's next?
Next, I usually go with our blueberry whiskey. This is always a surprising one for customers. When you hear flavored whiskey, you think of something like Fireball or Crown Peach that have added flavoring, added sweeteners, things like that. Smashing Violet is 100% natural. This is a new make bourbon mash, so completely different sort of spirit mash than Frank's or Night Lab. We take that fresh off the still. Nothing goes into that except for about 1,200 pounds of fresh pressed Eastern Carolina blueberries.
Right.
There's no coloring, no flavoring, no sweeteners. So completely natural. It's not nearly as sweet as people expect. Everyone always asks me, what's your favorite product that you guys produce that isn't
It was going to be
a
one of
nice
my
whiskey?
questions, right? Yeah.
It's this, because the cocktail nerd in me loves that I could bring in fresh, vibrant berry elements into a drink without bringing in additional sweetness.
So my favorite mixed drink that, I mean, if people don't like bourbon, because I didn't drink bourbon, I didn't drink brown liquor until probably 10 to 15 years ago. And it was because my friends took me to, to bourbon country, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess I'm drinking something, and then fell in love with it. Now they all are getting a piece of ice, and I'm drinking it, straight. But the Blue Ridge bourbon that I talked about, what's cool about that is even people that don't have a palate like that. You have a recipe similar to it on your website, but what you've done is you've gone in and you put mint in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, this is a really fun spirit to play with. I think mainly because it isn't super sweet.
Right.
You can go as simple as mixing this with a tonic water or a ginger ale.
Right.
One of my favorite things is a little bit of lemonade and some club soda.
Right.
Or you can do that from scratch with like fresh lemon, simple syrup, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you do the simple syrup, you do the lemon juice, and then what you've done that I didn't think to do when I tried it one time is I went the jigger of that. You actually do a half of that and then a full jigger of something else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fun to split base with a more traditional whiskey, to bring in fruit elements. My guilty pleasure with this, honestly, is I'll take a pint glass,
Right.
put a scoop of vanilla ice cream in there, about 2 ounces of this, and then I top it off with like a lemon lime soda.
No, there's no freezer
Oh,
underneath there,
so
is there?
good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely love that one. You mentioned our rum earlier.
Yeah, so tell me about this, because now this is something that's even more cool, if there can be, is you guys are Distillery of the Year.
Yes. Yes.
In 2022 by the by the Chefs Associate, what is it?
The North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. So
Right there.
every year they do a big competition called the Chef Showdown. This was the first year that they invited distilleries to compete, and then they asked each distillery to, bring an active working bartender in your community to, come up with cocktail recipes. So we were very fortunate. We partnered with David Bowen, who owns Ginger Fox Beverage, along with his wife Madeline. And he came up with 2 phenomenal cocktails for us. One was featuring our rum, and then the other was featuring Frank's Reserve. They both showed really well, but our rum cocktail is what made it through into the finals and ultimately won us Distillery of the Year and David Bartender of the Year for the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, that doesn't help out at all, does it?
Well,
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
Here in Winston.
We were very excited. Actually, the entire triad was very well represented at the competition. We had folks from Machete, Black Powder Smokehouse was in the finals. Of course, Fainting Goat was in the finals. So the triad was very, very well represented in that competition.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but
Is this the sipping rum that they started the whole idea with?
This is the route we're going on our rums. Of course, we haven't released any of our aged rums. We're hoping to do our first cask of aged rum next spring.
Okay.
If kind of labeling and all that works out and we get all the approvals we'll need, by the spring we'll be releasing our first 4-year bonded single cask rum.
All right, and we've got to talk about your releases, because I think that's something big, because I actually, as you and I both know, had a friend that ended up coming back up here and tried to get that. So we need for people to understand how they can get involved in that.
Right.
But yeah, no, and of course the Heaven Hill Distillery is where you're getting some of your barrels for this one, right?
Right. So our standard Sungrazer rum will rest in a Heaven Hill bourbon barrel for about 3 months.
Okay.
Of course, eventually we'll be using our own bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
We just have to have enough empty barrels to be able to do a full batch of rum, which is generally 3 to 4 barrels of rum.
And that's what people don't understand is right now, when you go to the store and you try to buy bourbon, you are working on what someone thought the sales would be 7 to 10 years ago.
Right.
So in 7 more years, there's going to be a whole bunch of bourbon out there because the demand's so high now.
Well, and you're going to see, as we've seen, I'm not sure how crazy you were about whiskey. We watched Elijah Craig lose its 12-year age statement. You're seeing less and less age statements on new releases. You're seeing bottles that always had age statements going away because all of that age stock is gone. It's gone. So products that just 4 years ago would have been, nothing but 8 to 13-year whiskeys are now 6 to 10-year whiskeys, and we're going to see a lot more of that happening. The big contract distillers out there, Heaven Hill being one of them. Of course, MGP and Barton. Good luck finding well-aged stock. I mean, trying to find barrels that are 10 years or older is near impossible unless you already have contracts in place. So we'll see a lot of younger whiskey over the next 5 to 10 years until some of the expansions that have gone in place at bigger places actually start producing those barrels, if that can even keep track with what's in the queue, sort of demand-wise, which
Right.
none of us in the industry like we're not seeing that sort of mid-70s kind of drop off where like bourbon disappears in popularity, because even before we saw kind of bourbon die out for 15, 20 years,
right,
it was never as popular as it is now.
No, and that's the other thing too, because there was a gin rage a few years back, and then there's this, and so it's interesting. But bourbon seems to have leveled pretty good. As I said, I didn't drink bourbon in college or anything like that, and now it seems that there are people that, you know, the thing is you gotta hit both sides of the road, and you know you gotta appeal to every person, and it seems that now bourbon is starting to do that. That a lot of people are doing, you know, hey, well, I'll try this or try that, or the drinks or whatever.
We'll say bourbon as a whiskey, especially as an American whiskey, and when we talk about American whiskeys, it's primarily bourbon and rye.
Right.
But just bourbon across the board has so much like big, beautiful, sweet flavors in it. You know, heavy caramel, heavy vanilla. Like if you're getting fruit elements, it's probably going to be like this big, bold cherry or this like big banana element. So it's a sweeter whiskey, which makes it easier for non-whiskey drinkers to kind of dip their toes into the whiskey waters with something like bourbon.
Let's talk about that after this break. Right maybe in here we'll decide what works. We're going to be right back with more Camel City Chat. Welcome back to Camel City Chat, and as you can tell, our glasses have multiplied, but there's something missing.
What happened?
I don't know. So, all right, so we've made it through our beginner thing, night lab. We've got the blueberry, we got Frank's, we've got the rum. See, I paid attention. What's down there that's looking really good?
So I've actually pulled out two of my favorite whiskeys we've released. One's a rye, one's a bourbon.
So I think Big Winston is what Justin and Sydney bought me.
I think it is.
Yeah, brought to my house, and I took it to a friend's house. We went to a party that night, and I will tell you, there was I think 3 or 4 of us drinking, and there was less in it than in the straight rye bottle after the. I mean, we were down.
I like to
here.
hear that. That's always a good sign.
And I left the rest of it with the host, so that now they are exposed to it, because I already knew.
Well played.
You let me know if you need me to do that for anybody else. Just I'll walk out and. Yeah. All right. So what we got?
So these were both like limited edition single barrels. They came and went. We have our anniversary rye from last year. This is a 7-year, 107 proof single barrel rye. Absolutely gorgeous. We are doing an anniversary rye this year, but it's only 8 years old.
I can't believe that.
That one's going to be coming in at 105 proof this year. It was the best proof point for that barrel.
Right.
It was either put it out at 137 cast strength,
right,
which only so many people are going to get really pumped about 137 proof whiskey. Also, the price point on something like that would have to be probably more than we're willing to charge a customer.
And now, so here's my thing. So I come off the street right now, and you're open. What are your actual hours? Because like I said, we're here on a Wednesday, but what are your actual hours? You're here when to when?
So Monday and Tuesday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Right.
Saturdays, we're open from 1 to 9 p.m., and we do full-service cocktails all day on Saturday.
And so where do you do those? Here?
Yep, we do them both in the tasting room, and then we have a temporary premise set up with the ABC, so we can block off the four parking spots right in front of the distillery.
Okay.
We'll put out, fans if they're needed, tables.
So at
chairs,
that point, then you're
jars.
moving like a mobile bar that's like they use at a convention center or something like that.
We still run the entire bar out of here.
Okay.
We have, we'll usually have at least one staff member that will go outside and take orders as needed, or people will come in and order a drink.
And what's happening next door?
So next door, which used to be the Sunshine office for Sunshine Beverage.
Sunshine Beverage. We all know the. Yep.
Yeah. So they moved out, and then us and Fiddling Fish and the folks from Celestial are turning that into a community entertainment space.
Okay.
So we will operate a full service bar out of it. The folks from Celestial are also part of the Short Street Commissary Kitchen.
Right.
So they're going to be providing grab-and-go sandwiches, self-serve coffee.
Gosh, what kind of beer are you going to serve there?
Stuff like that. And then, of course, Fiddling Fish is going to be
How freaking
be in
cool
there.
is this?
So, yeah.
And so I could like rent it as a venue, but I could also, you can do that like when they're having a band or something. It helps everybody.
Oh yeah, it's a really fun way for all three of us businesses in the Big Winston complex to be able to work together and help each other.
Right. Now, all right, so I come in off the street. Can I buy this right now?
This specific bottle?
Yes.
No. What you can buy right now on the bourbon front is going to be our standard Big Winston, which is a 4-year bottled in bond. That's the minimum standard for us moving forward for bourbon. It's always going to be a 4-year bottled in bond. If it happens to be lower proof, that's going to be because it's significantly older than 4 years and it needed to go down lower in proof.
And when we go outside, you'll explain bottled in bond to us because I think that's something really interesting to people. Right. So, and then this is...
You'll also be able to get our standard release of Rye Fidelity, which is a 6-year-old 90-proof single barrel rye. Really excited. In January, this is going to transition into a small batch product consisting of about 5 barrels per batch, but it's also going to transition into a 6-year bottled in bond product.
Okay.
And we're finally going to be rotating our own rye distillate into that.
Okay.
Because we finally have barrels that are 6 years old.
Perfect.
And we no longer have to rely on sourced barrels for this product.
All right. All right. And then, and then you've got one more down there?
Last whiskey that's available if you're to walk in off the street is this wonderful single barrel pick that a group called the Smoke and Barrel Society out of Fort Bragg did. Okay. So they came in, picked this barrel, and then were kind enough to let us hold on to a few cases to be able to sell to, local fans of Broad Branch. But it's a 4-year, 5-month barrel. We bottled it at 110 proof. It drinks maybe 100 proof, drinks well under proof. Really, really gorgeous rye barrel.
And so, I'm sure most people know this, but you've said, so we're going to try rye here, right? And what's the proof of this?
Proof on this is 107 proof.
And so basically to the layman, what's that mean in percentage of alcohol?
107, my math isn't great.
53.5?
53.5.
Appalachian.
Yeah.
So cheers. All right. So this is, how old is this now?
Little over 7 years.
That is nice. That's really nice.
Oh, it's so.
First time drinking on camera.
Hey,
all right.
There's something that kind of happens after the 6-year mark. We've noticed with our whiskeys, like there's the 3-year mark going into 4 years. Like magic happens on those ryes. Like it goes from like, oh, this is good to, oh wow, this is really good. And then it kind of happens again, and that sort of starting at the 6-year mark. And once it gets into 7, that's really where like the rye just starts to become very, very refined. Like flavors become, there's like no muting of the flavors. Everything is very kind of distinct on its own. There's a lot of complexity. And then our rye tends to have a bit more natural sweetness than people expect, especially with it being 100% mash bill.
Right.
The sweetness kind of takes a step back and allows some of those age and oak notes to really kind of play nicely.
Right. Now, let's talk about you all with, all right, so I think there's some other things that people don't know you guys do, and you are, I was introduced to you because Nick supported a charity. So, I mean, you guys invest in the area too. I mean, you're supportive of that. As your job of brand development, obviously sitting here with us is one of them. Right. Maybe picking, I mean, what's your job specifically? I mean, are you out, I know the ladies are doing tasting, and yes, there are tastings at local ABC stores. But
if the board allows.
The board, you got to schedule it, but I mean, it's allowed. For Winston-Salem it is.
Right.
Right. But so you what do you do?
So I do a little bit of everything. I kind of live where, your PR, marketing, and sales kind of crossroads, but those things don't neatly fit into either one of those specialties. So whether it's kind of community outreach, help figuring out what charities we're going to work with, what we're donating to, or activities. You know, there's a few things on the docket later in the year that we're looking at doing that will be kind of fun parties and fun activities that we'll be involved in. I do a lot of sales work,
Right.
Whether it's, you know, talking to the local bartenders or going to other communities, talking to their bartenders, dealing with the ABC boards. I do, you know, some of our public relations work, whether, you know, it's responding to, you know, customers that are upset about not being able to get a product.
That was my next question. All right, so here we go. So you guys do releases.
We do.
And so the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to Broad Branch Distillery and sign up for the email list.
Please
You have
do.
to do that. And then what's our next release
Next
that you're allowed to tell me?
Next big release will be 1 October. We're gonna do our fall release of Pride Rum,
Okay.
which you guys saw the label. Our
Right.
Pride Rum, exact same rum as our Sungrazer rum.
Right.
Big differences here
Right.
are gonna be the label,
Right.
and then that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Same price, same rum inside, but because of the label, we wanted to do something good for our community, centered around that
Pride, yeah.
specific community. So $2 from the sale of each bottle of Pride Rum is going to go directly to the North Star Community Center. If you know your viewers aren't aware of who they are, they're our local queer youth outreach center.
Right.
Whether it's providing a safe space or counseling as needed, they really just work with the youth in our community to make sure they're getting the help or anything they need.
Right. Yeah. No. And it's awesome. I know they've got I think they have a bingo coming up sometime here soon. I think my wife's going to go to that. One of my, you know, when my family moved here, we had a company called Piedmont News, which the equivalent of what Piedmont News is for you would have been Tyler's Newsstand down in Fayetteville.
Okay.
All right. So we had K&S News here. And one of the things that early on, and I met a guy, and you know, he was with his partner, and they actually got married on the Pride stage the first year that it was legal. And then I talked to him on my radio show on WSJS right afterwards. And you know, the festival here is phenomenal. And I mean, you know, it's just thank you for doing that, because I think that everyone needs to feel at home in Winston-Salem and not feel ostracized for anything they do.
Right. Well, this is our community.
Yeah.
We live and work in this community, and you know, there's plenty of organizations or charities or causes that businesses can be involved in, and of course, you know, the Pride Rum isn't the only thing for us. It was just sort of the first very sort of community thought-driven product for us. As we get our feet under us as a growing business, we expect to do more things within the community, and definitely not just centered to sort of the LGBTQA.
No, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You find your path because the door's open. I mean, you guys have supported Green Nest, which if you don't know about Green Nest, holy cow, I mean, what a great organization. You know, you're telling me about this. The thing that
We do, last 2 years we've done the Derby party with Trellis,
okay,
which assisted living.
Right.
So we always help them kind of raise money to keep doing what they're doing. We're looking at some opportunities to do something for Crossnor
Right.
a little bit later in the year.
and you know, Crossnor now has the ropes course.
Yeah.
Have you been out there to see that?
Not.
All
I've
right,
driven
we had
by.
it scheduled, and then you know, it's getting enough people to do it. And speaking of getting enough people to do it, let's say this right now. You know, it's not my birthday or nowhere near, but I want to have a whole bunch of people maybe come down here and get a tour. You guys will just reach out to you, right?
Yeah, just you could go to the website, info@Broad Branch, shoot us an email. There's also a place on the website if you're interested in a tour or a tasting or something like that, you can shoot us an email through the website. Right now we're only doing tours kind of every other Friday,
Right.
Starting at 5 p.m. We just don't have a large staff on hand
Right.
to be able to do that. So
Is there a charge
bear
for the
with us.
tasting?
Tastings are free Monday
Right.
through Friday.
Okay.
Tours cost $10, but we do offer private tours and private tastings. pricing on those varies. It's
Right.
a case-by-case thing.
Yeah, when 2020 hit, one of the things that I wanted to do as president of the Realtors Association was hit 20 for 20. And what I meant by that is you give $20, we pick a location, like Vulcan was going to be one of them. And so we go, or Grayland was going to be another one. 20 people are allowed to sign up. It costs $20. You're going to get a box lunch and a tour. So we show up here on, on one of those days that works for you guys. We show up, we got 20 people. There's box lunches here from whoever. And then we get, an hour with you. And that's kind of where some of Camel City Chat came out of.
Yeah.
I mean, I like for people to understand why this is a great freaking place to live. And, just like we were talking about Justin and his girlfriend, Sydney, I mean, they're now huge fans of yours just because a local said, you got to check them out. And the same with, they went out and saw Zeb too and loved it too.
Yeah, this is a great town. I think a lot of people that aren't familiar with Winston kind of look at Winston, they see it's 250,000 people, and they're like, oh no, that's going to be kind of small, backwards town, like that's probably not necessarily a place to go. But what they don't take into consideration that, yes, Greensboro and Winston and High Point are all separate cities and separate communities, but they're all so close to each other, they almost make up a larger metropolitan area that's well over 1.5 million people. And then you factor in all of the higher education here, whether it's North Carolina School of the Arts, High Point University, Wake Forest, the colleges over in Greensboro, and then everything that comes along with that level of universities.
Right.
Plus, very active kind of small farming community that's feeding food into, farm-to-table restaurants. You get a lot of the things you expect to see in larger cities, done on a smaller scale.
It is amazing that you see some of the things. Like, I mean, the Cardinal is a great restaurant. I mean, and we go there. And then I'm friends with Adam Andrews. I mean, he's doing something new every day. And, I mean, to have Brian buy, put Finnegan's back on. I mean, that was just such an institution. So, well, let's do this. All right, we're going to take a break, and then I want to see the stuff come out of the.
All right.
I want to see the good stuff. Get the Winston hug.
Okay.
The burner.
I mean, we could pop open a cask and see what comes out.
Who knows? So we're going to be right back with more Camel City Chat. And we are actually in the distillery now. And first of all, you've made me another pour here. And what is this?
This was our last true limited edition bourbon we did this year. It's a 5-year barrel that then spent 3 months in a cognac barrel, and we bottled it up at 101 proof.
And when was this released? In the last month or two?
Probably about 3.5, 4 months ago.
So what was the one you just released that my folks missed?
That was a standard 4-year bottled bond.
Okay, so cheers with this. Okay, so this is Big Winston.
Big Winston.
All right, cool. Now, we've seen this stuff before, so Stabler will kind of move around while we do this. So this is the mothership here, right? This is the big still.
It's our beautiful pot still. I think pot stills are kind of dying in American whiskey. Everyone uses a column or a hybrid. It's a lot more efficient, but it strips out a lot more of your carboxylic acids, your fatty acids, your lipids, and those carry flavor and texture.
Okay.
So we prefer the flavor you get off a pot still. That's why it's generally a selling point, when you see sort of single malts or Irishes, things like that, because you're getting a lot more flavor and texture generally off a pot still than you will a column.
Okay. All right, so now we're putting the mash in here, we're heating it up, it's popping up, and then where's it going?
It comes out over here, comes out through the parrot, and depending on where we are in the process, whether it's a stripping run, so we always do at least a double distillation.
So there's three phases to what comes off, right?
Right.
There's the head, the tail, and then the good stuff in the middle.
The hearts.
Right.
And that's if you're doing a spirit run. Right. So our first distillation on any product is what we call a stripping run. Okay. That pulls every last usable bit of alcohol off that distillery beer that we cooked in our mash tun.
Right.
And then the second distillation is where we get those heads, hearts, and tails.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. All right, and then we're putting it into what?
We're putting them into barrels.
So you're putting it straight into barrels from here, or you're putting it in containers and then barreling?
Well, from here, depending on where we are in the process, we separate out heads from hearts and tails from hearts. So right now, oh yeah, that is a stripping run.
All right,
Like,
so that's
you
a
get in
stripping
there,
run. So you walk in there, Stabler, and see that.
You can smell all the, like, it just doesn't smell good. It's not great. It's the first part coming off, fairly low proof.
Okay.
It's very kind of oily, very grainy, not great.
But now you drink that straight. That's where we get the Winston-Salem hug from.
No, you definitely
don't
don't.
drink that?
Not
Okay.
off the stripping run.
No, from the heart is where we get that, right?
Yeah, from the heart.
All right.
On a spirit run. So depending on where we are, what's coming off the still will go into a drum like that,
Right.
or a plastic tote,
Right.
or a stainless steel tote. The
Right.
plastic totes we generally put our low wines in, so
Right.
that's what we get from that first run of the still,
Right.
the stripping run. And then stainless steel is what we always put our actual final spirit from the
Okay.
spirit run in.
You know, we should go this way if you want to, and then Stabler has to chase us over all this stuff. Or no, where? Yeah. So where? Go this way?
Yeah, we can
All right,
go
cool.
this way.
All right, so we're going out here, and now this is something that is interesting to me because I think I've figured this out. You're testing alcohol, proof, et cetera, all that stuff, tasting it to make sure it's all that, yeah.
Yeah, and so like you see all these, we've had these sitting out here since last week.
Right.
Some of it's curiosity, some of it's just part of the QC process. But we do want to know, like, what happens to the spirit over prolonged exposure to oxygen. Just
Okay.
because we're curious. Every time we open a barrel to taste it, the new oxygen's coming in. Every time you open a bottle, new oxygen's coming in. So having an idea of how oxygen's going to affect the profile of the spirit after the bottle's been opened is always a good thing. So these have been sitting out here, like, someone will come up and just every now and then lift that up, put new oxygen in it, and, you know, usually
And that's
once
me
a
opening
day.
the bottle at home too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest experiences I had is I have a friend of mine that used to work for a big restaurant in Louisville, and so we got to go on a tour with him. And they had the owner of Willett, the younger son, drill a rickhouse barrel on the top floor. And it was just amazing to watch it. You know, you drill up here, it comes out, he plugs it, all that stuff. And to taste where it is in the process. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, we need to go ahead and bottle this one, and that type of thing. And I know you're going to share kind of what we're doing here with that, but so how many, I mean, at some point we're going to outgrow this.
Yes.
Are you going to build a rick house or?
So right now we have about 400 barrels across the entire product catalog sitting right here downtown. We do have another building. It's over in the Whitaker Park area.
Right.
What we're standing in right now, this whole facility is about 4,000 square feet. Our new building is 32,000 square feet.
So you'll always keep a presence here, but you may move more
Right.
of your storage over there? Or?
Storage
And distillery?
Primary distillery operations will happen over there. We're looking at
Kind of like what Foothills did. I mean, we got the downtown, but we also have the place out on Stratford.
because we need to be able to produce more.
I hate that for you that you're having to move to build
Champagne
to do more.
problems.
Yeah,
Well,
right. Champagne problems. Yeah, right.
Champagne problems. But yeah, the new facility will include everything from actual distillery operations, bottling, distilling, grinding,
You might actually have an office?
silos, all that. Maybe. Maybe. But we're also going to be putting in a fairly large event space.
That's cool.
The goal is to be able to
It's
host.
all about event spaces now, isn't it?
Yeah, people want sort of an all-in-one kind of experience and package. People love hosting events at distilleries, so it's another way to drive revenue so we can keep growing and keep building new jobs and keep buying grain and all that.
Yeah, I mean,
good stuff.
how many people were working here when you started here?
3.
Yeah, and how many are here now? Like 8 or 9?
We have our 4 full-time employees that aren't sort of tied to the family,
Right.
Anna and Natalie, so 6.
Right.
And then we have about 3 part-time employees that help out as needed.
So, this has been a good investment in Winston-Salem. And, you, as you said, you live around the corner. You're paying rent, you're paying your house payment, whatever you're doing. I mean, yeah.
And I think I'm the only sort of person here that hasn't kind of grown up in Winston. So it's always weird when
We'll
people
accept you.
People are like,
Yeah.
oh, this family. I'm like, yeah, I do not.
All right.
I do not. I think one of the funnest things about working here is the fact that John and his family haven't kind of limited our creativity. Yeah, we're doing this on a small scale, but they allow Don and the rest of us, like if we have what we think is a good idea for a whiskey, we get to make it.
Right.
You know, so you'll see weird markings on some of these barrels. Like right here, this is single malt.
Right.
We all like some single malt, but every now and then we didn't quite do math right, and we'll have a bunch of leftover grain that's enough to do like a single run of whiskey. So, like these barrels are all 4-grain bourbons.
Right.
We had, leftover wheat.
But how can it be
rye.
four? Because it's supposed to be 3 or so. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
It's all it has to be is 51% corn,
Yeah.
and then whatever you do with that other 49% is up to the distiller.
All right, so I got to ask you this: what's going on? Let's sneak over here and see what's going on behind us here.
They should
doing?
still be bottling up Rye Fidelity.
Guys, we got you on video now. We've caught you working.
Yes, we hand label everything. It is time consuming, but automated labeling and bottling lines are very, very pricey. So as of right now, any bottle of Broad Branch you have at home, one of the employees here did everything by hand.
And if it's a big run, it's everyone probably touched it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I hate these seals are broken. I don't know what you do with that.
I don't.
You know what the
at
crazy,
some point we'll taste
you know what
it.
the craziest thing is for me, as you know, my background of where I was on the ABC board.
Right.
There is a sink there, and they break bottles and pour that stuff out if there's errors and things like that. It's crazy
This
to me.
is madness to me.
Yep.
That seems like madness.
Yep.
But
All right. So what we got? Where are we going barrel wise? You got something good?
we'll go right. I mean, they're all good.
All right. So watch out for that cord over there. Let's go this way.
They're all good. Do you feel like a whiskey? Do you feel like a rum?
I have not tried the rum yet. If you want to do that,
well,
so let's do that.
Let's come back here. I got some really, really nice, like almost 4-year-old barrels of rum back here.
All right.
Which one is this? That's a 4-year-old rye. Here we go.
Get in there, Stabler.
Do you have any room in your glass?
I cleared it out for you specifically. Thank you, sir. So now this is where we started from, but really where we want to go to. I mean, the bourbon is something that you guys love, but this is what they started the whole process with of us sipping rum, correct?
It was a passion of John's.
Right.
We knew we were always going to make whiskey. He always wanted to make rum. Kind of
That's nice.
product development on this rum took considerably longer than any of our whiskey mashes.
Right.
When you're only working with a single ingredient, the little details and the little choices you make in the process matter even more.
I homebrewed, beer. I mean, it's amazing. If you just don't wash one thing, it changes the whole flavor profile. The best thing I ever made was I made an IPA and put jalapeno in it before everybody was doing that, and I mean I loved it. But the problem is it's so much easier to just go out and buy all these other people doing it.
Right.
And with what you guys do, it's damn good spirits. And I really think that people need to come out here. We go to broadbranchdistillery.com.
Right.
And you're having all these different events. I mean, you were telling me during the break, not only are you introducing that 1st of October, you're doing that. There actually is going to be some folks here having a celebration out front.
Yeah.
And so what do people need to know about you before we go? Because I think we're about to run out of time. But
When it comes to us as a distillery, we're more concerned about the quality of our spirit than the quantity we can put out. And every decision we make as a business is about not sacrificing the quality and all the hard work we put into learning this craft up until this point. So, yes, you may not be able to find Broad Branch in your local store, and that's because instead of sacrificing quality so we can put more bottles out, we'll take our time and expand our operations to be able to hit our quality points at every point of this process as we grow.
And now, I know for a period of time there was some things with ABC that I could buy a certain number of bottles a year with you all. That's since changed, right?
Oh, that's gone.
Yeah, so I mean that's changed, which is great because if you go to a local ABC store and they don't have Broad Branch, just drive downtown and you can buy it right here.
We always have Broad Branch.
That's one of the things Zeb said. He's like, I know there's some in Raleigh. There's none in the country club store. I got it here, so come see me.
It can be frustrating sometimes with when your distributor and your retail operator are government entities. Like some boards, some stores embrace that they are raising revenue for the government on the consumer retail front. And then some boards and some stores take the approach that they're a government agency and you should be happy to be able to buy something.
Well, the thing that I've always said to people about it, and being a former member, what people need to realize is ABC may not be the perfect solution, but it is the people that are drinking are the ones that are paying for it. The police force that comes out of that, the money towards education, it goes all the way. All this stuff goes down to zero, but the thing that everyone needs to realize is that costs are kept at a certain point and things like that. So I went into it wondering why we do this, and I came out of it understanding, just in Winston-Salem, if you take away private, if you take away the ABC store and go private, everyone in the county, or everyone in the city of Winston-Salem is going to be paying 3 more cents on their house tax. So I mean, it erases that by people who are drinking. That money that comes in is keeping the ad valorem tax down.
Right.
So, there's pluses and minuses to all of it.
There are. And like there's probably balance across the board. Are we balanced in sort of supporting that and supporting the 91 distilleries in the state?
And that's where the best part comes in. I can come to you and buy as much as I want now.
Right.
Obviously, I'm getting permits and stuff like that, but no, I can come buy from you. That's where it was a hindrance, was when I could come and you had to take my ID and I could only do that. But you guys do great work. We only got like 30 seconds or so I want to make sure that I say, first of all, thank you guys for having us.
It's our pleasure.
I've suffered through this. I promise I'll finish it right. I'm just kidding. No, this has been phenomenal. It's a great tour. I encourage people to come out. BroadBranchDistilleries.com. And, I've suffered through the tour is what I was meaning, not the alcohol. I'm loving this. But you are an awesome ambassador for the brand. And, it was funny before we got started, most of the staff was here and they were giving us grief and things like that. You have to come out and check out Broad Branch, conveniently on Trade Street. They're here most of the time. Check their website. And we'll be back next week with more Camel City Chat. But before we do that, Jeff Smith, Smitty's Notes, want to thank you for being a sponsor. Don't forget to come here also on October 1st and get some of that Pride rum, which is what we're drinking right now.
Well, an older version of it.
Well, it's still rum.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.